Hello, welcome to Pod Songs, where we interview inspiring people in service to others as inspiration for a new song. Today's co-hosts are Nicholas Gunty and Brian Powers, who perform and record together under the name Francis Luke Accord. And we're going to interview their hero, an award-winning actress and comedian, Janet Varney.
Jack?
Hello there.
Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear, yeah.
Okay, all right. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Sorry it took me a minute.
No problem.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my goodness.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm Nick. Brian should be coming soon.
Okay.
I think.
All right. I was expecting that. I want the whole I want the full Monty. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh.
Some spontaneous harmonies. I want the whole shebang.
So how does this normally work? Like what?
Well,
what's your process?
While you're in it, this is the beginning, and then we go through to the middle and the end. This part is where we get to know each other before the guest comes on. We just kind of chit chat about how the day's been and the career and everything, and then the guest comes on. We get wound up and caffeinated and inspired, and then we go away. We write a song separately, come up with some ideas, bounce some emails back and forth, and collaborate and birth a bouncing baby song.
Dude, this is such a good. Where did you come up with this idea, and how did you get started in this? Like, I mean, what was the inspiration here? I'm curious.
Well, the reason is I'm a member of a spiritual organization called the Ethereal Society, and I really wanted to promote it. I really feel passionate about it. So I wanted to have, because I've been a musician for many years, and I've always had these, these half-hearted things. You make an album, and then, you release it to the sound of one hand clapping, and I've done many things like that. But this time I think, okay, I've really got to make a difference in the world. I really want to push. So how to do it? And then once I asked and the universe answered with this.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah, I'm on a mission from God for God.
Both.
Yeah.
What is your spiritual community?
It's called the Ethereal Society. It's kind of UFOs and yoga. Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. Yeah, it's not like something you've heard before. It's a religion of the future. It's kind of a cosmic element that we evolve into planets, and we evolve into living on other planets.
I feel like
after enlightenment.
I feel like Janet will like that. I feel like we'll see. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in the south of Italy.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So you're kind of. It's nighttime there.
It is, yeah. Day's almost over. That's an amazing camera. We're not something to mention for a podcast, but you have an amazing camera there, Nick.
You know what? I realized that this has to be this way because I actually don't have a camera on this machine, so this is like a different thing. Oh. I appreciate that you like it.
Hello,
hey,
Brian. How you doing?
What's going on, Jack? Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
No, it's my pleasure.
Stoked for this. It's gonna be a blast.
You're ready to. Why did you choose Janet Varney?
Oh man, Janet. That was Nick's call.
That was my call.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I chose Janet because I am totally obsessed with Avatar. Not totally obsessed with Avatar, but I loved the Legend of Korra. I just loved that whole series. And so that was how I knew about her. And then once I started looking into her stuff, realizing that she's, also a podcaster and everything, I was like, this person seems like they would be an awesome person to chat with and get to know. So
for sure. She's been doing a podcast for 10 years and she's an improv star.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't even need us here. We just give her a location and a job title and she can riff a whole episode for us.
Oh, sorry, you cut out there for a moment.
Did I? I said that. Yeah, she's an improv star, so we just give her some keywords, and she's going to do a whole sketch for us, and we just make it rhyme. Yeah.
She's a musician too, isn't she? I thought I read that somewhere. I don't know. I want to ask her if she still writes music and stuff.
I know.
Yeah, she was in a band. I learned just this morning in my research. So I don't know what kind of band, but yeah, that was going to be one of my questions too.
Yeah.
I just saw she's in a new country series, country music kind of set.
Yes.
TV.
Yeah.
I don't know if she sings in it.
I think she does.
Okay.
I think she does sing in it. And yeah.
You guys could be out of
Just
a job
saw that
here.
on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. Seriously,
I
goodness. Gotta watch out.
I don't think she can compete with your harmonies. So.
I
haven't heard her yet.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. I bet she could. She's a pretty talented woman.
Yeah, I'd never heard of her before, but obviously doing her research, that Stand Against Evil looks pretty funny.
Yeah. I was really surprised to see that got the book, like it got kicked off like 3 or 4 seasons in or something like that, because that seemed like a really good idea. And I love what's his name, the guy from Scrubs.
That guy.
Yeah, that was I haven't seen the show, but yeah, I'm really curious to chat with her, get to know her a little bit.
Yeah,
and that Everyone's Crazy But Us as well, I checked that out, and that was really funny. There's some great
I also found I'm forgetting the title of it, but she there's a little like sketch show about her like quitting. She plays this character. She wrote, directed, and then acted in this sketch comedy where she plays this character who quits her job as an actress to become a fortune teller, a psychic. And it's just super funny. It's like that was actually, I think, one of the first times I really saw her comedy, and I was just like, oh my god, this is this is hilarious. It just opens up with her with like holding Fred Armisen's hands and like looking at his palms and he's just like sweating bullets. It's so funny. Yeah.
She also does the Sketch Fest, is a comedy festival, and she's a busy lady, hey?
I know. It's like the list is endless. It's like going through. It's like, how do you have time for all this? You know? But I guess, she's clearly done so much stuff and gained so many skills over the years from doing all this random stuff. You know, that's all semi-related, you know? And I feel like so much of it comes back to probably her improv skill set. You know, she just applies that to
right. So
everything, whatever the next thing is that she's doing.
Yeah,
you know? But
can do everything quicker than us.
Yeah, totally.
That's what I'm nervous about. I'm a musician. I need to sit. I need to process things. I need to absorb them.
I gotta edit like crazy.
Slowly. Yeah, exactly. I'm not the yes and kind of guy, you know.
Give yourself some credit. You're not. No, you got some of that in you from the like 500 shows that we played together.
That's true. That's true.
Let's talk a bit about the band, because this, you guys have been together quite a while now, since college, no?
Yeah. It's been a minute. Coming up on 10 years this fall, which is insane.
Anniversary.
Anniversary. Not sure what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a minute. been a minute. Starting college. I don't know if we moved to Chicago after a gap year after school, and just started slugging away, you know, playing the dive bars.
Open mics.
Open mics. You know, neither of us had any obviously experience or connections. You know, neither of our no one in our family worked in music, and so we're talking about it recently. If it's kind of like you got to throw the blinders on and just put the pedal to the metal for a minute and just see where it goes. And I feel like we are to some extent are still doing it, hopefully in a, a bit more of an educated way, almost 10 years in. But yeah, it was very much put the blindfold on and just go.
I mean, a lot of albums and 500 shows you said, and those harmonies are it's fantastic. It's certainly Simon and Garfunkel territory now.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks.
That's a great compliment.
Wow.
What about you, man? What's your background of how did you? I mean, Pod Songs is a COVID thing, right? What came before Pod Songs?
I was a traveling musician as well. I was a super troubadour doing house concerts. So I'd kind of tell a story. So I was kind of always talking as well. You're talking too much. So I guess a podcast is a natural transition. You know what it's like in these house concerts. You have to. The audience is right there, so you have to. Tell the story.
It's like half storytelling. It's like half playing, half storytelling.
Exactly. The gig. So this is kind of natural transition. So, but I'm really enjoying it. I mean, great to chat. We'd never get to collaborating with you guys over a song. Is just going to be so fantastic because I'm so tired of my own chord progressions and sound of my own voice and.
Preaching to the choir here.
We are. We all are, man.
I think everybody at this point, now that's like, the pandemic is over and we've all been, like Brian and I are in a band, but Brian lives in Chicago and I live in Boston. So we, haven't seen each other in a really long time. And, and that's already, we are a band together and we are, we have like a thing. And it's just like, I'm just so ready to just like start getting out the door and like one like even just going and playing shows with people and just talking to the other musicians who you're playing with that night like is so like soul rejuvenating and you don't get that when you're not doing it. So this is definitely like I feel like the pandemic version of that. Okay. Maybe even better because like we don't we don't get to write with other people all that often.
And about a heroine. Okay. So
yeah.
Oh man, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, Jack. Who's been your favorite guest so far that you've had?
Well, I mean, it keeps getting better. I mean, I keep getting more interesting guests every time. So, I've had some fantastic episodes, and I'm really looking forward to the new ones as well because, I'm people like the format. Like I spoke to someone like Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer. Before it, I had like 500 monthly Spotify streams, and I hadn't even launched the show, so I was a nobody. But if you just email people and offer to write a song about them, it's incredible. They say yes. Even big famous people, and so
tickles the ego a little bit.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's flattering. So I think I'll go for people with crises, and I look through the paper to see if someone's having problems. If there've been any allegations against them or any, then those guys are gold. Because they're at a vulnerable moment. I try to get them on the show.
Well, it's such a good idea. Like I have no surprise. I'm not surprised whatsoever that this is gaining so much traction because it's just such a good idea.
Well, it's amazing. Nobody. I mean, it's such a simple idea. No one's done it yet. So.
Well, I feel like oftentimes those are the best ideas, the simplest ones, right?
And I feel like this is you're not just doing something new, you're kind of doing something courageous. Like I would say that like you're doing, like it's one thing to just do something that no one's ever done before, but it's another thing to try to find something like a niche that needs like since this whole project is oriented around service and other people, to find that niche and then to figure out a way to build into it is like, that's like next level.
I'm supposed to be interviewing you guys, and
I mean, you're the one with the incredible idea.
Yeah,
we're just playing folk music. It's been done forever.
Well, let me just get comfortable and I'll tell you a story. I hope Janet coming on doesn't disturb my flow. But
Yeah, we'll just we'll get Janet on to write the songs about you, and then we'll be testing all the different theories at once.
No, but let's tell people more about your music, because we've got the 8 minutes before, if she's on time. We're not, these celebrities alike. So let's go deep into your music, because this reach the audience to try and drive some people to the Francis Luca court. Why is that in the name anyway? Francis.
That is a fabulous question that we try to avoid answering at all costs. But really, I mean, the truth is, it's we came up with that name just sort of sitting in a parking lot, and when we were in college, and I actually just recently heard someone say that all 3 band names sound like emo bands, which I thought was kind of funny. The real story, I think, behind it is that Francis is Brian's confirmation name.
Okay.
Luke is my middle name, and comes from my parents' Catholic heritage. So both names sort of come from our Catholic background ultimately.
Okay.
And honestly, that was not a part of like the consideration for this name, but the more we grow as a band, the more I realize maybe that's ultimately why that became the name.
Okay.
There's a definite like spiritual anchor to our music. And I think that, I don't know, maybe we just got lucky that we came up with such a good bad band name.
Terrible name. We got lucky that we came up with a terrible name. No, but what's one funny thing about the name though is that Francis, it's spelled Francis with an E, the feminine version, because that was the street that I was living on in my senior year of college when we formed the band. And, Francis with an I, St. Francis of Assisi is my confirmation name. But we were like, Pope Francis just got elected. We don't want to compete with him on Google. So let's just go with the street name, which, actually makes it come out to be the fact that like, it's kind of like your porn name. You take the street that you live on in your middle name. And I don't remember what the other one is.
Your first pet, I think.
Your first, yeah.
Not that I've ever done that.
So Accord, yeah. Not speaking from any kind of experience, but somebody actually told us at a show one time after we explained that. We were like, oh, the name's even worse now. But Accord is kind of wraps it all together. It's harmony. Yeah.
And what kind of stuff are you singing about? What's the inspiration for?
Oh, that's a good question too. I would say we try to sing about things that matter. And to us, that ranges from like, internal, emotional, psychological, spiritual questions and soul searching. Mm-hmm. And it also comes from a kind of like external, we live in this world and we all have to share it. And we have all sort of an obligation to be good stewards of this common existence. Those are probably the two centers. And I think in that respect, our music is often like either kind of operating as like a kind of an internal spiritual, like almost like a journal or diary, and on the other hand, kind of like the I don't know how to say it, the like social responsibility end of things.
Okay.
Yeah, which kind of always ends up coming back to a couple of different themes like climate change and certain ethical convictions and things like that. It's hard to talk,
sure,
broadly enough to be accurate, but specifically enough to be meaningful.
Even from the beginning, you were quite active in with a purposeful mission. You had collaboration with a Barefoot Truth Children's Choir in Uganda.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh, that came about late in college. There was a gentleman who worked at the university by the name of Kevin Dugan, who had a nonprofit teaching kids in Africa, specifically in Uganda, how to play the game of lacrosse, which is interesting. He was part of he was an assistant lacrosse coach, and this became his side gig and ended up being his full-time gig for a while. And he had seen us play a number of times. I don't remember what turned him on to us, but he was like, I love what you guys do. I kind of hear this, this message in your music. I would love to, connect you with this choir if you want to figure out a project to do with them. Like it's, I can handle the logistics. You guys got to, come up with the project and do that yourself. But I can get you in touch with the right folks on the ground. And so we said, yes, of course we want to, do that. And yeah, we were super, super lucky to get to do it. We're still in touch with the choir. And it was just a joy to do.
Because that's like Paul Simon, isn't it? I mean, that's another parody, similarity there with a...
Yeah.
I mean, Uganda and South Africa are pretty far away from each other. Details.
Details. Yeah, but it's all about the harmony and the voice. So that's fantastic.
Well, yeah, and collaboration with a culture that you don't, that's not a part of that is different from you, and isn't your comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys can write some nice harmonies for me to join in. I can go low. I don't very high.
Do our best.
I think you have a lovely singing voice, by the way, Jack.
You're also a producer, Nick. Yeah, you're working with many different artists.
Yeah. I mean, I try. It's the thing that I think I love the most about music, honestly. And actually, the songwriting part of it is really fun. I'm sure because you're also a producer, but like seeing something from the sort of like the very beginning to the sort of finished project is just like a very rewarding process.
Yeah, it's going to be a real magical mystery tour to write this song, because we don't really know what it's going to be until we've written it, until we've got the inspiration, until we know what it's about. So
yeah. And actually, to that point, I wanted to ask you, Jack, if you had anything you wanted to cover, like a specific topic or theme or something for this interview.
It's what the guest wants to chat about. So obviously Avatar could be a big thing. Could do that. But
I kind of want to be I want to be respectful of the fact that Avatar came out like 10 years ago, and Janet's probably like completely done, not interested in talking about that. So I do have other questions.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, actually, one of the questions that I'm really curious about sort of touches on some of the things we've been talking about already, which is, as such a multi-talented person, I'm really curious if, there are a lot of times in my life where I feel like I had to make a hard choice between choosing one path or another. And I feel like in some ways being multi-talented can make certain aspects of your career more difficult.
Right.
And I'm really curious if that was the case for her at all. If she ever felt like that was a part of her
That's
story.
a great question. This is going to be such a great interview. I really am.
All right.
Because it's a lot,
Cool.
I don't never know until I turn the camera on. You guys come on whether you're going to be a disaster or a hit, but I'm fully confident now because.
Well, I mean, you don't know until the end, really.
Also,
we're still early.
I don't have many questions because I don't. If it's someone who's written a book, I do research before, but I haven't interviewed many actors before, and I tried to listen to her on some other podcasts, but they were just chit chat and making jokes, really. So you can't really ask. It's much easier when someone's written or come up with a theory about something. So they're normally on autopilot. You just you have 5-6 questions just to keep them going sometimes. But sometimes I leave the room, and come back and yeah.
They're still talking.
They're still talking. Yeah. But no, this is great. So you can take the lead, Nick. I think we go that. Are you okay with that, Brian? I mean, I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Sounds good.
Wow. What an honor. Oh, can't wait. Jack, do you have a background in journalism at all?
No, but I was a copywriter for a long time, so I was doing, which I kind of got a job as a copywriter because they said I could write songs, so you probably can write copy. So I did that for a long time, and it certainly pays a lot better than music, that's for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But you're still doing music. I mean, you're doing. Oh, hello.
Hello there.
Hey.
Hello, Jen.
Oh, you've got a way cooler background than the rest of us.
I'm glad that Jack and I are both sitting inside a vampire's tomb.
Yeah, my goodness. I thought it was going to be morning for you.
I mean, it is, but I'm in a I'm in a closed space because there's a lot of construction happening everywhere around me.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
I don't have that beautiful morning light, like album cover kind of effect that Nick has.
Can you believe Nick's camera? I mean, it looks like he's on film.
Yeah, that's very pretty. That's very pretty.
This is funny because
Are you kidding me? The guitar? Come on. That's great.
Jack told me we weren't even doing cameras for this. So, this is
all
my backup.
incidental.
Yeah, I actually I had my wife run to Target about an hour ago because I didn't have a camera.
Oh, really? Brian, your camera looks great.
Yeah.
What kind of camera did
Thank
you get?
you.
I'm just on it. This is my laptop.
Yeah, I got this desktop that doesn't have a camera. So, when I bought the $20 Logitech.
You sang your wife
from Target.
My
wife did, yeah.
It looks good. Here, I could try to make mine. Look, there. Oh. Ta-da! It's slightly brighter.
Beautiful. What is that in the background that you have draped? That beautiful.
This is a tapestry. It is a Society 6 has been getting so much business from me during the pandemic and before. I have to be honest. It sort of looks like maybe the Sound of Music Alps background.
At night, of course, at the moment.
But yeah, now it sort of looks like sunset, I guess.
That's beautiful. Well,
you guys need me to record on my end, by the way? No,
it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm the host here, over here, but but we've got the guest musicians here, Nick and Brian from Francis Luca Cord, and they're, as you soon discover, they're big fans of yours, and so they're gonna kind of take the lead here. And I'm English, as you probably can tell from my wonderful accent.
I'm not. No, I can't. I'm not. What if I couldn't detect
slower?
accent? What if I thought everyone sounded American no matter what? That would be a weird brain thing. If my brain just converted everything into a nasal American accent like we all have.
Yeah.
What if you just couldn't understand English spoken in any other accent?
I mean, that feels like it could be a real thing. That just feels like a limited capacity kind of situation.
Great. So we're going to craft a song on whatever you inspire us in the next hour-long conversation. So no pressure.
Oof. Tremendous pressure.
So just channel, just let it flow. We'll stimulate with a few questions. Give you a few scenes. You can do some improv. You can just do whatever you feel.
Oh, wow. All right.
And just take a deep breath. You've been doing podcasts for 10 years, so I think you'll be teaching us by the end of this.
Just wish that were true.
I mean, you have been doing podcasts for 10 years.
That part is true. That part is true. I guess you know what? You're right, because teaching you something could mean virtually anything. Like I could be teaching you what not to do. There's all kinds of possibilities that don't include positive things coming from me to you.
Is this also where you record your podcast, Janet?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, certainly since the pandemic, this has kind of become the spot. Usually, I try to have people in person as much as possible.
Right.
And that would be in a totally different room. But listen, times they have a changed. There's your song. Bye.
Ain't that a treat?
Oh, that was it.
That was it.
That's been
all I
done.
got for you.
No, it has to be an original song.
Well, in a way. Well, it's been done, but now it will have been done in the past tense, but in the present. You see, we're playing with time in the sense that our song definitively, they've changed. The times have changed, and that implies they're not going to change anymore. That this is all there is, and from this point forward, they won't be a changing because they have a changed.
I like this version of reality. I like stability, and I feel like this is just like speaking to my needs right now.
Good. I'm glad there's nothing you would want to improve going forward.
Yeah, no, everything is just exactly the way that it should be forever. No.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, that maybe this is a good first question for you, Janet. Do you feel like I mean, I'm sure it has, but I'm just curious in what ways maybe. How has the pandemic, I know the pandemic has temporarily changed everybody's life, but how has the pandemic like permanently changed your life?
Great question. First of all, I mean, listen, I cannot tell a lie. I am one of the many, many, many people who finally was like, I guess we gotta like turn a shed into, I guess we gotta build a shed and then turn that shed into a workspace, because I did discover that listen, I have a wonderful house and it's certainly big enough, but in the pandemic, again, like many people, it suddenly felt like maybe it wasn't big enough. But that has facilitated the current building of a studio for recording, which is outside of the structure of my house that I probably would never have gotten around to, but because the pandemic seems to have shown many companies that they in fact don't need to rent studio space, which I'm worried now about all my friends who are sound engineers on an ongoing basis. You know, initially it was like, well, listen, this is temporary. We'll all go back to our work soon. But, so many of us have gear that like networks found out like, oh, really? You sound great. This is going to work. Okay. Note to self. Yeah. Here's how 5 ways we can slash the budget the next time, we're back working regularly again. So that's certainly one very practical way in which the pandemic changed.
Your house grew.
My house is growing. It's beyond growing though. It's like, it's like a more disturbing than that, because it's not getting larger. It like spawned a spore popped off and is now growing up on the property. The property. Doesn't that make me sound like an adult who lives on a ranch? It's just out on my property. It's like 5 feet away from my house. It's on the same property. Hard to even see. It's a dot from my house. I have so much property. So those, that's a very practical way. Every other answer I feel like is an answer that threatens to be, more of a global answer, like starting to get into more, I guess, topics that Bob Dylan would write about. And more
this is, we're looking for a song, so yeah, go ahead.
I mean, times they have a change it. Or did I say that already? I guess I probably said that already. I'm really trying to solidify that in the zeitgeist. I really want people to be saying times they have a change it. Clearly, that's very important to me.
No, that's a good answer.
Okay.
This is my next question. That maybe this is also related. Do you still play music?
Oh, good question. I very rarely play instruments anymore, or at least not for the time being. The reason for that is part laziness, but also the other half of that is actually like a super bummer answer, which is that I don't know let me preface this. This is all very depressing, by the way, not comedy. Nothing about what's about to happen is comedy. I was in a band when I was in San Francisco in my early 20s, and our bassist, who was, by the way, British, shout out to Jack. Of course, I couldn't tell she was British. She just sounded American to me, but she was British, and she had she was also like a hairstylist. And so here she is a bassist and a hairstylist, and then she was diagnosed with MS. And I feel like the people in my life who I, by the way, spoiler alert, do not have MS, but the people in my life, I feel like many of the people, not that it's such a common disease, but the people in my life who have had it, I feel like it's always been people who very specifically make their living working with their hands. You know, I mean, we all use our hands, but it's a different relationship if you are a pianist or if you are a woodworker or if you are, you know, insert other fine tuning with your hands kind of thing. And that just seemed so spectacularly unfair. Again, totally unfair to anyone who has to grapple with it, but just a different level of unfair. Anyway, so I've had some kind of situation for the past year or two where I have like something must have happened to my middle finger at some point, like I bonked it really hard or something, but it sort of triggered some sort of inflammatory thing that happens now where my whole hand will like swell up if I hit. And so it's the form of arthritis, and it's, I guess, temporary. It's not like old age arthritis. It's like sports injury kind of arthritic inflammatory stuff. So I've just been trying to deal with all of that, but it has greatly affected just any sort of like, so guitar has just been off the table. And typing is also not great, but that is an absolute necessity. Whereas things that are less important, like, again, very sad, I'm not able to work with my miniature dioramas at the level that I would, or at all at the level that I would. I'm sure I would have spent a lot more time during the pandemic making dioramas. I pretty much guarantee you that would have been happening. But
okay, wait, you said no jokes. You said no comedy. Is that a joke or is that real? I have to know that for sure.
It's really not a joke. No, I really love I love little tiny things, and I don't have a dollhouse. I did when I was little, but I like the best example I can give is the last thing that I made that had any complexity to it was like a sort of shadow box, that's like wood on all sides except the front is glass. You slide it down. People use it for mementos and whatnot. And I created a tiny cemetery using like figures that are the scale of like the smallest. You better write this down. You'd be fooled
this is
not to write
definitely
this
for
down.
the song.
I think it's the smaller scale of model trains. Again, I don't have model trains, but I think it's like a half-inch scale, like a dollhouse scale is 1-inch scale. Model trains usually are half-inch scale, I believe. And so I made a cemetery. It was for this gallery event years ago that was in connection with Raleigh Crump, who was this designer who designed like It's a Small World and designed all the stuff you see in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland or at the Disney World, like the wallpaper that's sort of the creepy. So he's this kind of famous sort of Tim Burton-esque artist, but far precedes Tim Burton. And there was this gallery. There was an art opening that was like, other people sort of paying tribute to his art, and I was invited to do something for that. And so I did a tiny cemetery with all the kind of stuff that you would use to create a town around a railroad, but it was inside of this thing. And then there was fake dirt about halfway, and then the cemetery takes the rest of it up. And then inside the dirt, I had created a little pocket where there's like two little people, like as if they've continued their marital life, but it's underground in the cemetery. So one's sitting at the table and like the other one sort of serving them something. And I think it was called like, suburbia or something like that, like sort of suburban living life, something like that. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's like there's a little wink to it. The thing that I keep wanting to do that I haven't been able to do is I didn't know I went to Tokyo Disney Sea and bought this, like, while I was there. One of the things they had was this little weird tram, like, that I guess is the tram that you take to get to and fro, which seemed like sort of a weird memento. And then also when I was at a model railway store, again, looking for this kind of thing, I saw that they have a group of guys in hazmat suits. So at some point, it became clear to me that, like, I need to create some sort of diorama in which something has happened to this tram, and then there's like guys surrounding it with hazmat suits, because it's so weird that someone was like, what we need for this delightful model train village is some sort of ecological nightmare happening that's like poisoning people. Anyway, so there you go. That's what I would be doing more of. Oh my
God.
That was it. I got nothing better than that.
All right, if we write a song about a miniature doll's house, that'll be gold. But if not, we need the...
Getting back to things.
So you don't...
Or Brian, yeah?
I was going to say, so you don't do much music anymore, but what kind of band were you in your 20s? And any favorite, like, dive bar memories from back then?
Okay, so I was in, this band that I was in was Fluff, who was our British bassist and hairstylist, and her wife, Chris, who was our guitarist. I played, like, rhythm guitar. And then our friend Mike was our drummer. So it was just the four of us. And we didn't play out that much. I don't think that was really the goal. Like, when I look back, I mean, we never had this conversation, but it never felt like anyone was scrambling to get, like an open mic gig or, something like that. I feel like we played in San Francisco at, like, the Edinburgh Castle, and maybe, I mean, we never made it to, like, a place like Bottom of the Hill or anything like that. We played at some different pubs, which now I'm like, oh, was that only because Fluff was British and they took pity on us?
And he just wanted another excuse to drink.
Again, did not occur to me until just now. But there was a place in The Haight that we played that I can't think of the name, but again, 100% sure it was a pub. And so it was more about, like, getting together during the day or at night and being in that rehearsal space. And that, the experience of, I mean, a lot of you guys know, you're musicians, but the smells and just the feel of being in one of those rehearsal spaces are so specific, and it should be disgusting because pretty much all of the smells involved are what many would characterize as slightly unpleasant to very unpleasant. But if you have a lot of good memories tied to those spaces, like, suddenly you have this fondness for that. And so that's what I associate, like, the sort of smell of, like, stale beer, like too many beers were spilled on the carpets and splashed up against the walls, cigarettes, all faint enough, nothing overpowering, because it all feels like remnants, and just being too hot, everything's sort of moist, and the visceral, like, all of the visceral part of all of that, like hearing other bands, like wanting a certain room in the space because you, like, there's definitely a room in which you can hear other bands the least, and then there are other rooms, where you're like, oh no, we're in Studio C today, well, we'll just make the best of it. Like, I just have, that was such a strong experience. So whenever I get asked to come into a studio like that for any reason, if it's that kind of band rehearsal space, I always get so excited because I'm like, oh, it's gonna feel like the old days. But a lot of the spaces in LA that I've been are too, like, they don't have that. I don't know if it's that they've not been around that long or if they're just more sanitized. But I'm like a little disappointed when I go into a room and it doesn't have all of those things happening. Anyway,
I feel like I was going to say, I feel like for young bands, artists just starting out, I feel like that's just a rite of passage that everybody has to go through. If for some reason, if you manage to like jump somehow and skip that phase, I just feel like you're going to be worse off.
I agree. I agree. I absolutely agree. And as far as the music that we played, I would say it was, I think at the time I was like, I sort of associated, I think I was after something that was sort of like the Pretenders. Like, I think, and again, that was not like a super contemporary reference even then, so I don't want to sound even older than I am. It was definitely like the Pretenders, I believe, had not existed for some time. Maybe like somebody, dragged Chrissie Hynde out, gave them enough money to like do reunion tours. But that was a band that my dad loved, that I took to very quickly band, as a kid, and thought Chrissie Hynde was just the coolest ever, and so I think that sort of was left over in my brain, because also like by that time I had sort of outgrown the my like Cure and Depeche Mode and that kind of phase, the psychedelic furs, like the super sort of Brit post-punky kind of new wave stuff, but also like that never would have worked for me, and so I think I appreciated that we seemed to all want to play within whatever it seemed like we could get away with. Do you know what I mean? And that seemed like maybe a good, as they would say in the business, a good comp, which kind of made me sick to my stomach a little bit. Yeah, just saying that just now. I regret that.
Well, okay, so question for you. So did you ever go through a folk phase, like a folk music phase? And I'm taking it because I heard on one of your podcasts that, in talking about your relationship with your mom and Mormonism, and how your mom, upon you leaving for college and you informing her that you wouldn't be continuing your faith in the Mormon church, she said, and I quote, "You can't have a religion based on Cat Stevens and Joni Mitchell."
Yeah, and then millions of people the world over, if they had heard that, would have been like, "The hell you can't!"
That's my religion.
Yeah. I think people have done just fine having a religion based on those two.
So when was your folk phase? And 2, are you still practicing the religion of Cat Stevens and Joni Mitchell?
Okay, folk phase. Folk phase is lifelong for sure. I grew up listening to Cat Stevens, although again, my dad had great taste in music. I mean, I guess depending on what you characterize as great, but my dad he was very much like, he was a single dad. He was the guy who had a ton of reel-to-reel tapes when like that's what you had, and he was a musician. He's a fantastic drummer and was in bands through high school and college, made a shit ton of money in college playing parties and stuff, nice. Was really, really good, and still even now, maybe not so much now, but no, he does. He'll still set up his drum set, and he'll just play. He has these giant Klipsch speakers that are like waist high, that he'll just set up the drum set and just crank it and play along. So anyway, so he's a musician, and so he really introduced me very young to just all the music that he was into, and he had hundreds of records and then hundreds of CDs. And so for him, like, Cat Stevens was one where he had a lot of Cat Stevens albums, but he had sort of phased out of Cat Stevens, and so Cat Stevens was on the records, and it felt more like my own discovery, versus, and same with Joni Mitchell. Well, actually, I don't even know if he had any Joni Mitchell, but those were things that felt like they belonged to me more than like Talking Heads was, my dad's a massive Talking Heads fan, or the Police, huge fan. There's like a series of bands that he was into that I started out like thinking I hated the sound of the guy's voice, again, as a child. Like I remember thinking that David Byrne can't sing. And then at some point I was like, no, they're my favorite band. Like that just, and he was like, he went through like his Midnight Oil phase when Midnight Oil came out. And I was a kid and I was like, that guy's scary and his voice is whiny. And then within like 6 months, I was like, yeah, Midnight Oil is really cool. They're doing a lot for the Aboriginal community. Like I became very PC and like anyway. But so those were bands, and like the Pretenders definitely was, my dad loved the Pretenders. So those were that was the music that I grew up with. And bless my mom's heart, she wasn't not into any of that. So the folk thing was lifelong, but I took classical guitar from grade 5 to like maybe my freshman year of high school through then. And somehow I never used that to like learn how to play folk songs. And then my senior year of high school, I was like, wait a minute, hold on here. And so going into my freshman year of college, and then definitely through my freshman and sophomore years of college, I was like, learning as much Joni Mitchell, which that's tough because she is really interesting, like alternate tunings and chord signatures and stuff. And but like Cat, not so much, which is very easy to play. Sarah McLachlan, definitely had to cover some Sarah McLachlan songs. Like I auditioned for Into the Woods. I was not a musical theater person, but I auditioned for Into the Woods by playing a Sarah McLachlan song with my guitar. So that was an ongoing thing, and played like coffee shops and stuff when I was in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is a great place, by the way, to be into playing folk music. It's just a bunch of people who probably still love Fish and listen to Fish every day and brew their own beer in their basements and stuff. And lots of sage smudges and stuff. It was a great town to go to college. And then that phased into the band that I was in. But, and I wrote some really bad folk songs, very bad folk songs.
I feel like this is kind of leading us into a question that I have been wanting to ask you since we put this interview on the calendar, which is, you are such a multi-talented person and you've done so many different things, and you, even like in your acting and your writing, you're doing comedy and you're doing horror and you're doing Avatar, and like I just feel like there are a lot of situations where having an excess of skill and talent would make your life more difficult, like your professional life more difficult. And I just have been curious if you ever felt that, if you ever felt like there was, like
I'm too talented.
Yeah.
I wish I had ever felt like I was too talented.
Maybe more like if you felt like your talents were pulling you in one direction, like to choose a path, and you felt conflict between choosing that path versus something else that you also loved.
That's a great question, actually. That's a great question. And because I think to the extreme, taking that to the extreme, I have not had the same kind of success that maybe I would have had, or that friends of mine have had, who like have a thing that they love, that they're passionate about, that they do, and they become the go-to person for XYZ. And I definitely have never been that, and I've never had that. And so from a purely commercial perspective, doing all of these different things that don't necessarily have fan crossover has been interesting, because there are definitely situations where I'll be in a thing and someone will be like, I've never even heard of you. What have you been doing? And you're like, some people know who I am. It's a small group, but then there's some other people know me from this other thing, and they have no idea that I'm doing this thing, because they would never like it. There's definitely a lot of that from like a career trajectory standpoint. And I mean, there's definitely stuff. I mean, I think about that. I think this might be true of people who even haven't dabbled as much as maybe even they would like in other forms of the arts. But certainly for people who have, every time, like, not every time, depending on how bad of a mood you're in or how hard you're being on yourself, like somebody releases, somebody writes a novel and it's someone or you've met or something like that, and you're like, oh man, why haven't I haven't written a novel. What am I doing? Like, oh God, I haven't written a novel, or someone's
That's
like,
been
and
my
by
entire
the way,
pandemic
right?
mindset, actually. I've seen people on Twitter to brag about the things they've done. And I'm like, I planted a basil plant last week.
I'll tell you, those people I'm sure they're overcompensating for other things that are going on in their lives. We're none of us perfect. But yeah, so there will be stuff like that. Like somebody will, be like, oh, that they're on their 7th year in this hugely successful show and they'll just never have to worry about making money ever again because they're at the point where their money is making money, like that sort of thing. Yeah. Where I'm like, oh man, if I had just been totally, committed myself to just auditioning for TV shows. If I had just made it about that, then maybe that would be me. But then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh no, I don't want that.
I would
have to give up all these other things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about my dioramas? My rich life, my rich inner life of dioramas. So that is a really good question. And I do feel that way about music. I mean, I think, again, like I have friends who noodle around on guitar and are phenomenal guitarists just because that's the way they relax, but they also make their living as TV writers or whatever. And I don't have that relationship with music. I don't have that, that's not a thing that relaxes me. That is a thing I have to be very strategic about. I have to be very intentional about. And so one of the things that I love about doing the stuff I do with the Thrilling Adventure Hour, for example, or Sketchfest is doing these just kind of lighthearted. Oh, sorry. Is everything okay? You've all changed order and where you are on the screen, which is really fun. It's very musical chairsy. Now, which one of you is Jack? But anyway, so to sum up, I'm very long-winded. To sum up, I love doing the Thrilling Adventure Hour because, or anything that's sort of in that realm, like Paul F. Tompkins and I share that love of doing music as much as we can, but we don't have time to compose an album. So when someone like Jonathan Colton or Rhett Miller or people like that ask us if we will do a thing with them, that's the first thing we'll drop everything for, because we're both like, oh, we get to sing something. That's going to be great. Sure. Yes. Let's please. So that's really nice, is if you can get to a place where you have peers who know what you like to do, but that you don't necessarily take the time to do for yourself, and they invite you into their world, then that's just such an amazing gift.
I totally agree. I feel like that's kind of what is happening right now with Jack and us. Actually, that's kind of what this feels like a little bit, since this is kind of Jack's thing. And actually, before you got on, Janet, we were talking about this. We were talking about how it's just especially with the pandemic, it's you just aren't seeing people the same, and it's hard to feel like you have your social community or whatever. This just feels like such a nice, fresh way to do something new and be sort of involved in something that challenges you, but also is fun and is rejuvenating.
That's so great.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're lucky, right? I mean, I think we're really, artistic folks are really lucky to have those means of staying connected and having, especially if you're collaborative, wanting to have that social connection. I mean, that's the number one way that I stay in touch with any friends for the most part is you work on something together. Yeah. And it's always scary when that thing is over or it goes away or there's something, because you do think oh no, this was the way that we were accountable to each other in a great way. And that doesn't, I don't mean that to sound like, oh, I can't have friendships unless I'm writing a song or something like that. But, but this lifestyle is so random as it is, and you get pulled in so many different directions, that having that structure is often because I just don't have many friends, and then maybe that's as you get older too, right? Even if you have a family or you don't have a family, you have your career, you don't necessarily, you're not going to go to the bar on a Friday night every Friday and see your friends. Like, that's not necessarily how you keep connected. So for me, work and accountability is always a great way to keep close to people.
That's such a brilliant point. You know, I feel like that actually is like I feel like I'm going to keep that as a mantra in my head going into the next year, as like things open up again, and as you know, all these sort of avenues start to become available. I feel like it's kind of like maybe the opposite is going to happen, where we all are just like inundated all of a sudden with a bunch of things to do. And in some ways, this is like a good way to keep in touch with people, even in a busy, open, active.
So Janet, you do so much. Is there one
pandemic,
thing though that you keep coming back to over the years that you find fills you up the most, that you just can't, like, consistently you come back to year after year? That's, you know, after you do it, it's just like, okay, yeah, that is the most to me.
Oh man, that's a great question. So much of what I feel, so much of what I end up doing at any given time, it has so much to do with other people's decisions about what I could get paid to do, at least. I mean, I guess. Well, it's a very broad answer, but just something with comedy, and that's I think that's a big deal for me to say, because, you know, I produced this giant comedy festival, which we didn't do this last year because of the pandemic, but it's really hard work. And so sometimes I turn into that person who's like, you know, like when people are like, oh, your kids are so cute, and you're like, do you want to take them? Like, you don't mean it, but you sort of you're having that moment where you're like, yeah, producing a comedy festival, it's all laughs all the time, ha ha ha, because it's really hard. And so sometimes I sort of feel like I have this adversarial relationship to comedy, but when I sit back and sort of look at the things that have brought me the most joy consistently, even through these really hard times, it definitely is funny people wanting me to be funny with them in some capacity. I have to accept that I can't imagine what would my life look like if I wasn't totally gifted by all of these people who just make me laugh all the time. That's really lucky, you know? And again, friends of mine who are on, who do things that, you know, are creative or on the acting side, for example, but are on these sort of somber shows. I think there's a lot of joy in if you end up with people who make you laugh, even though you're talking about dead bodies or whatever, then you're still getting some part of that. But that's still, for me, it's not the same. You know, I've done enough of that to know that it's not the same as doing a show like Stan, where you're just laughing all day, all the time, even when it's really hard and it's very demanding. There's just no getting around the fact that you're doing, like, you're goofing off, and it's so so comedy really is, you know, a through line that I would never be able to walk away from. Even if someone was like, okay, you can have the serious side of Tom Hanks' career for the rest of your life, I would be like, I can't do that. You know, I have to. There has to be more giddiness to my life.
Laughter is so healthy for us, you know. Totally vital. Yeah. Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Vital. What if and then your song is like, you gotta laugh. Everybody knows you gotta laugh, and we're like,
we're all sitting here thinking, you really,
it's
got to be a comedy song. Oh no, shit. Oh God, I don't like
that. I'm thinking the opposite. I'm like, how can I write the saddest, somberest song about Janet Varney? and in her vampire
You could turn
ward.
it could be like a soulful Bruce Springsteen song about my temporary arthritis, probably. Like,
Oh, my bad finger.
Like, when they told me that I couldn't play the guitar. Like,
Sounds like you've been
like
listening
I'm
to
a
Bruce and
factory
Amanda
that's
podcast.
closing down. I have not. That he is just he's just baked into my unconscious like anybody else who's been alive through like most of his life and career. He's just in there. I don't know. I think I own. I mean, what's own anymore with music? But I think I have like before Spotify was a thing. I think I have. I bought one Bruce Springsteen song. Everything else is just. Circumstantial and like happenstance. Like, of course you're going to hear Bruce Springsteen all the time.
Atmospheric, yeah. Were your parents big Springsteen fans, or was that like just really something that came naturally to you, like part of
definitely not. No, my mom was not a fan of what's been interesting, my mom passed away a couple of months ago, and it's been really interesting to sort of dig more into her younger life as I've been meeting all of these women that she went to college with, and talked even to my dad, who I have no memories really of them together. They split up when I was so young, but kind of talking to him more about the version of her that he fell in love with, and they were very different than my mom sort of turned harder into being a little more conservative and being more Mormon, and really just I only heard her listen to like classical music and then Prairie Home Companion. Like those are the things that I associate with my mom. But my dad, they like went to like ELO concerts and stuff. Like they did stuff together, and so I don't So part of me wants to say like I don't know, maybe she was a Bruce Springsteen fan and I just don't know, because that's just not something she showed to me.
Yeah.
My dad, I think, loves the Boss, but like again, did not grow up listening to Bruce Springsteen in any kind of real way. Not the way my dad would like nerd out on Stuart Copeland, and like his drumming and like his alternate time signatures and all that stuff. Like those were like things that he wanted to talk about, those kinds of things. But was not a fan of Mickey Hart. Definitely not a huge Dead fan. Liked the Dead, but did not. I never listened to the Dead.
So your dad, obviously a very creative person.
My mom,
what about your mom?
Was delightful. She was like where she expressed her creativity, I think, was more in her academics. She fell in love with just all things French when she was young, and so she majored in French, and then she got her MA and then got her PhD in French and studied French literature, and then went on to become a teacher and lived in France teaching English there, and lived in Quebec City, and again, you sort of realize like, oh, I don't really know, like, was she teaching English in Quebec City? That seems unlikely, but maybe. I don't know what she was doing there, because she wasn't teaching French to Quebecois, but I don't think she would be teaching English to Quebecois either. So I actually don't know why she was there. But that was so. That's like, she was just. That's really where, and she was very much a people person. Like even after she sort of retired from teaching, she became a travel agent when that was still more of a thing, and just definitely a person that knew everyone's name at the local Safeway, and had like meaningful relationships with people that she would just kind of see on on a random but regular basis. So she was like that. But my dad's more. I mean, I'm more like my dad in general. Although I do love French and did take French and was a student there and stuff. But my dad's like the writer, the musician. He was, he minored in acting. He became a teacher, but he's like the most entertaining teacher, high school teacher.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Well, I'm touched that you would share that about your mom with us. I'm sorry to hear that she passed away so recently, but that's. I mean, obviously, wonderful woman, and
of course.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about
it
much. I sort of eventually got around to feeling like I wanted to like I have such a awful, I don't have a great relationship with social media in terms of like, it's not a thing I rely on. And it's not a thing I spend much time doing. I have to remind myself like, oh, I should post something. And I do not spend any time looking at anyone else's posts. I feel bad.
It's healthy.
But I just don't, that's just not for me. It's not for me. It's not for me. So, but yeah, I was like, I should probably acknowledge that this happened. And, but yeah, it's a real process.
Yeah, in your own way.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, it's a personal thing. Like you have to work it out yourself. You have to sit with it yourself before. Yeah. It's not anybody else's,
but nowadays you don't know. I mean, some people just live their lives online, and I try not to be judgmental of that because, I understand that like if you incorporate that into your regular daily life, then it would somehow be like, let me use Chrissy Teigen for an example. Like a lot of what she's done in the last year, I'm like, oh God, like I feel so like prissy that, I'm like, oh God, I would never share all of that as it was happening. But I also don't have a sense of like, oh, this is so gross. Like you're really exploiting your life. There's an authenticity to it that I also have to sort of applaud and go, well, if you've made your decision to live that way, then it is more honest to tweet about a tragedy as it's happening, because that's the decision. That's your authentic self. It would be extremely inauthentic of me to suddenly be like, hey guys, my mom just died. And like, that just wouldn't, that would be beyond unnatural. So, different strokes for different folks.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, since we are rounding the end of our hour, I really just want to ask you a couple of Avatar questions.
Always happy to talk about it as much as I can, I guess.
I can edit this part out.
Actually, it's not. It's less a. It's really less of a question and more just. Well, maybe there's one question. I was kind of curious. As far as I understand it, that show was greenlit one season at a time, right?
I guess. I don't know, because I was always told, like, maybe I was just told what the attention would be in a very optimistic manner, but I was sort of always told, like, we're going to do 4 seasons. But maybe that wasn't real. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Did you have any, I guess the question that I'm getting at is, did you know anything about the later seasons, and did that inform how you were, like, treating the character in the beginning, or was it you were kind of exploring the character as the character was growing?
Definitely the latter.
With the writers.
Definitely the latter. We did not know where the show was going. That was not disclosed to us until like we would start we would start recording that whatever respective season it was. That's really when we sort of got a sense of where it was going.
That's incredible. I feel like in getting to know you a little bit now, and like and discovering your podcast and more of your acting career, I just feel like every time I hear your voice, I hear Korra. Obviously, Korra is like the first character of yours that I knew, but I think, like, personally, and this is not a question, this is more of a statement, but I just feel like this speaks to the spirit that you brought to that character. My partner and I were actually just talking last night. Like, she was like, do you think Korra as a character was more like a character written by, writers, and then sort of like how much acting did Janet do for Korra? And I guess I would put that question to you, but my instinct is like Korra and Janet are like kind of two sides of the same coin, in a way. Does that feel like accurate to you?
I never, it's voiceover is so interesting too, because I didn't know what Korra was gonna look like. I mean, when I auditioned, I think there was a rough like pencil black and white sketch, or I just don't, and I can't say that for sure because memory is totally like a mess, and I'm sure Mike and Brian could say like, no, remember we gave you that like beautiful full color thing that you looked at. But my memory of it certainly was like, you know, they animated to our voices, so there was nothing pre-existing. When we were in the studio recording, we just had a script, so just words on a page, and that's it. There's no imagery, there's nothing. You know, once of course we're doing subsequent seasons, that was mind-blowing, because then we had this point of reference that was completely different. But for that first season, I didn't know what Korra really looked like. I didn't know what her family looked like. I didn't know what Bolin really... I mean, I just didn't have... None of that was floating around in my head.
Yeah.
And so... But as far as like why I think I got the part at all, even just with conversations that, you know, Mike and Brian or things they've said over time publicly, I think they did feel like that the sort of the vulnerability and the sort of like sarcasm and that being a way to hide vulnerability, all that kind of stuff was sort of relatable to that. That felt right to them. And the best gift that you can be given by brilliant geniuses like that is the things that they have said about both The Last Airbender and Korra, which is that they started writing towards what they sort of came to see rising up out of their actors. And so, you know, when as they were writing for Katara, they were sort of hearing, they were hearing what May would say or how she would, you know, depict something, and Dante and certainly PJ, and, you know, and so they said that about me at some point, and I was like, oh, I'll never. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
That's so beautiful.
You know, but also like God. it's. I really didn't have any idea that Korra was so controversial until long after it had ended, and people still are like, oh my God, I was.
Of course.
You know, like they need to write me to say like, I just want you to know that I defend you all the time to all the haters, all the many, and there are so many. But anyway, I don't hate you, but a lot of people really. I'm like, wait, first of all, do they hate me? Like me, Janet Varney, they hate me? Well, no, I mean, they hate Korra, but like you are Korra, so I guess they do hate you. You know, there's just a lot of like, I don't know how I got lucky enough to escape most of that. Like I had a very small sense of that from doing cons, but not really. And so it's been a process to sort of like, as a person who considers herself a people person and wants to be liked, part of even that, there's part of me, because I feel this huge loyalty to Mike and Brian, and of course to Korra, even though like of course she did things that were irritating. Like that was the whole point. The whole point was that she was complicated, and that was a complicated time and a very different type of story that was being told. So it's this like weird, I still experience this feeling of like, I think I can still win over the haters, mixed with like, you know what? Okay, you know what? To each their own, but like, stop hating on this. Like, this is absurd. Like, if you like Avatar, you need to respect the people who created it enough to give it a minute. Like, give it 1 minute. I'm sorry, you know? And then also I get into the mode of like, well, maybe you're transphobic, or maybe you're, you know, LGBT phobic, or maybe you're a misogynist. I'm like, Janet, calm down. Like, but that's a real weird push and pull as well. Like, to think... Yeah, like I'll either punch this person in the face or like I'll hug them till they love me. Like, what is that? So I don't know.
Well, I think the character is a total gift, and I think you did the character brilliantly.
You.
No hater here. Also, my only other Avatar question is: do you have any insights on the new upcoming live action?
Oh, the live action series. I don't have any insights at all. I don't. I really don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interview over.
I mean, as far as like Avatar Studios goes, like the fact that they are going to be doing more with Nickelodeon in the animated space, I have a much closer connection to. But I didn't really have, I mean, all I knew was in keeping in touch with Mike and Brian, like I knew that they were working on the Netflix show. And then like everyone else, I heard that they no longer were publicly through. Yeah. And,
that was devastating.
And, you know, and I think there are some people who were connected to the original series when it was animation. I think they are still at Netflix and we're still working on it. So I hope the best for those people and that, and the actors on it. Like, that's the thing that stinks is, again, once you've been on the other side, it's hard to just, kind of go like, well, it was bad. Like I want it to be good because I would hate for some, 15-year-old girl who's probably working her butt off trying to be the best guitarist in the world, like I hate the idea of that, of the negativity being projected onto her if it's not what the fans were hoping for. And likewise the writers and stuff. I mean, I'm sure everyone's doing the best they can, so I guess we'll see.
Totally. Well, I feel like we're rounding the end. Okay, my last question is, this is totally Avatar unrelated. Who is your favorite comedian?
Yeah, that's a strong, loud, potential bang. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
This is the kind of question my mom would ask, so I just am asking for her mostly.
I'm trying to think, but the because I don't want to say anyone that I'm friends with, because then it's like, oh, but what about, well, but then there are so many other friends, brilliant, funny people that I, if you'd asked me on a different day, I could have said them, and that would, I don't want to. So I'm trying to think of someone who's.
You're also
I'm trying to think if there's someone who's not a peer at all, who's just like straight up, perhaps not even alive anymore. I don't know. Okay, God, favorite comedian. And also that's tough because I'm not like a stand-up comedian type of fan necessarily. I enjoy stand-up and I respect it a great deal, but that's never been like the thing that I go to laugh at. It's definitely more
yeah. That was going to be another question of mine. What is your favorite type of comedy to like write or perform?
I've never even tried stand-up. To perform improv for sure. Without a doubt, having a great improv show gives me that high that people talk about having with other live types of performance that I don't really get. But God, that's so tough. I'm just trying to think. I mean, there are things that pop into my head, and I know I just said I wouldn't say a peer, but this is definitely someone who is like, will surprise no one. But I will say, when I saw Amy Poehler do improv before she had even was on SNL, when I saw her just doing it at the Upright Citizens Brigade in New York, I couldn't have been less surprised that she became the superstar that she is. I mean, it was. I felt like I was seeing something not from this world when I was watching her do improv. I was like, I love you. You are amazing. I don't care. You could do nothing from this night forward, and I would still think you were a genius. I wish that she still was. I wish that there was a way for improv to be a bigger part of what makes her famous, only because she's so brilliant in what she's known for. But I keep thinking to myself, like, oh, I just wish she should be as famous for just doing one live show on a Saturday. You know what I mean? Like, anyway. She deserves every moment of success that she's had.
Fantastic answer.
So that that's a big one. And then looking back, just like thinking about some of the women that I would watch in funny movies, or like finding out about Nora Ephron and how spectacularly successful she was, and women like Terry Garr and Madeline Kahn showing up in tons of really funny, great movies that I loved when I was little, that my dad would throw in the VHS tape and say, you're ready to see Tootsie. Those are all people that I think
good answers.
that really inspired me.
Oh my gosh, fantastic answers.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, well, that's our hour, right, Jack? I mean, I don't know. I have
next
a whole
time
more of questions,
is so
but
fun.
I feel like
God, I'm so aware that I talk all the time. It's such a different vibe than like being a host, and like, but my podcast is so much a conversation that I really feel like I just just patted myself on the back for an hour, which is gross.
Yeah, like, well, but you don't get interviewed. You don't get interviewed all that. I mean, you get to interview other people, but you don't get interviewed. So it's nice
Thanks
to be
for
on the
letting
other
me
side,
make every answer 15 minutes long. And I don't know how you survived that, but somehow you all did.
Oh man!
So what's the song going to be about, guys? I mean, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, that's gotta be in there for sure.
I mean, definitely miniatures for sure.
It's going to be a
Something about
biographical
miniatures.
song,
That's
I think.
very exciting.
TBD.
Yeah.
I'll surprise you.
Oh,
Fluff. I got
Yeah.
Fluff Studio C dioramas. Chrissy Hyde. We got to make them rhyme. So.
that's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know the Pretender rhymes with a lot
I think we
because
got a lot of
Joseph Brown
material.
managed to rhyme it with every word that has ever rhymed with Pretender. So
Solid point. Janet, you should just write
could
the
do it
song
in-
with
she
us.
could do it in
Like,
15 minutes.
autobiographical song.
Yeah.
well, that's the thing. You can do it, and if it's great, then you're a magician, and if it's terrible, it's okay because it was just improv and you were making it up. So the stakes are lower.
No.
It's true. We don't get that excuse as musicians, do we?
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this, so I'm excited, and I can't wait to hear what you do. But I will love it no matter what.
It'll be interesting. Thank you so much, Janet. When you were on the list of people in the big list, I was just like, in fact, I think we had even chosen somebody else at first,
Yeah.
and then I saw your name and I was like, wait a minute.
Oh,
Wait a
thank you. Oh, I'm so flattered.
We are just so grateful to have you, and it's such a pleasure, and it's just a pleasure to meet you and to get to know like who you are, as a person. I feel like I've been getting to know you through your podcast a little bit, but I feel like this is like the next one sort of notch deeper, and I feel like it's fascinating. Again, you're just such a multi-talented person that is so inspiring to me. I know it's also inspiring to Brian, and I just feel like that's that was one of the reasons
Thank
why
you so
we
much,
really
you
wanted
guys.
to
You're
talk
gonna
to
make
you
me choke
today.
up. That's very, very, very nice. That's very nice.
Thanks, Janet.
Thank you, Janet.
Wow. Well done. I just want to say that I'm a genius, and for getting you for delegating my job. I get you guys to come on, do an interview, write a song. I've just reached a new level of delegation here.
Jack, this is such a cool idea. Yeah.
No, this is great, Jack. Such a great idea. Yeah, we're super grateful that you had, sought us out. It's joy. Either.
No, and it's great. I love it when bringing people together like this. It's in a pandemic, and when people need cheering up, and so I'm just happy to have made you guys happy. So it's very hot. There's a huge love glow going on in the room now across the Atlantic.
I can feel it in Chicago.
Same. Yeah. Well, if you ever want us to do this again, just let us know. We're always around.
I'll definitely let's crack on with the song. So, what do you think then? I mean, you have some ideas, or you just want to let it stew?
Man.
Yeah. So how does this? So tell us a little bit again, or remind us again how this works. So we just gonna knock this out the next
you email me a finished song, and then I upload it.
That's great.
Yeah, by Wednesday.
It's like you know exactly what would make a musician extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, a deadline.
Yeah,
A deadline.
no, we can just grab the guitars and have a think about it. Email back some files, what you think, what your ideas are. And
Yeah.
we can stitch something.
I think that would be cool. I mean, Brian and I often talk about how when people ask us how we write tunes, we often talk about how the tune kind of has to start with one person first.
Right.
I kind of feel like maybe we all sort of go do one little thing, do a little demo thing.
Like spend 15 minutes, whatever the idea comes.
Yeah.
Whatever idea comes.
Come back and then kind of show, email the file sort of, or, just like quick record, like a little version of like a verse or a chorus or even just a hook or something. And then email it around and then just see which one we all dig.
I agree. Yeah, because see which one is the germ of that we all vibrate with. Yeah.
Cool.
See what.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah, that sounds great.
yeah. We see who's there's one source of inspiration. See who he sent. See who's the clearest channel. See who the higher source sends it to.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Okay. Then
Cool. So is there Dropbox, or how do you want us to send you this file?
Yeah, just send a small MP3.
Okay, cool.
So
Email.
it can be
Cool.
by email.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
what timeline
Great,
do you want to work on then?
It's always best to do it
Yeah.
now while it's fresh. So, because things will get distracted
Yeah.
with other projects. So it's easier. It's much less painful
Yes.
to get it done straight away.
Okay.
Yeah, not a rush in a nice way, but just don't strike while the iron is hot, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well, I mean, I'll try to do this today.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Yeah.
All right. I'm already doing it.
Excellent. Okay, sweet.
Cool.
Man.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Do you want to? Will you want
All
to hop back on like a video chat at some point, then, Jack, or do you want to just do the rest by email or whatever?
We can do that as well if we need to, because there's three of us and we're all in three different places, so that's cool as well. Let's just see how it goes, and it'd be great to chat to you guys again, even
Cool.
without
Sweet. All
without
right,
being a live
fantastic.
recording.
Well, I guess we'll
great.
be in touch then when we've got some material.
Good luck.
You too.
You too, Jack.
Cool.
Thank you again so much for having us. Very,
Yeah,
very
man.
grateful for
Pleasure.
this.
My pleasure. You did an amazing job. You're
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Well done.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
As long as you're by my side, I will make you dinner in the afterlife. Living our afterworld, stringing jewelry of gold and pearl. Some bonds don't break. I come to nourish you with my hands, make you sculpture in the sand. Hands that work, hands that tie. When you form the shape, but the shape expires. Know I worked for all these years, trying my hardest that my life's coming real. We've been witness to joy and pain, but the world we left is the world we gained. We're so different, you and I. In a way we never saw eye to eye. Despite the laws that set me free, in a way you make me still guiding me. as long as you're by my side. Will you make me laugh in the afterlife? Long as our long dark night, you can lead me on till the morning light.
Well, thank you to Nick and Brian for that fabulous track. They were a pleasure to work with. Such a beautiful to be able to work with artists on the other side of the world like this, thanks to our modern world of technology. And Massimino Vozza and Maurizio San Nicola and Luigi Falcioni, who also played on the track here in Italy. Please go and check out Francis Luke Cord. Check out their website, Spotify, follow them on Instagram, Facebook. Just search Francis Luke Cord. I'll put the links in the show notes as well. And that song will be released on the 17th of November on Spotify and all the usual places. Please share this episode with anyone who you think might enjoy it and help to build the show. We're a listener-supported show, so anything you can do in that respect would be most appreciated. Okay, until next time, take care. Bye-bye.